everyone, I'm Charlotte Kilpatrick, reporting for Vaccine Nation from the World Vaccine Congress in Washington. I'm thrilled that today we're joined by Dr. Michael Caldwell of Meharry Medical College. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
To kick us off, would you kindly introduce yourself and the role you play within your organization?
Yes, my name is Michael Caldwell. I'm an internal medicine physician with a background in preventive medicine and public health. I've been a vaccine researcher for a long time. My title is Associate Vice President for Vaccine Research and Education, and we are located in Nashville, Tennessee.
Lovely. Well, we're very glad that you joined us from there. So you're joining us to chair the clinical trials track. What are some of the main concerns that we might expect to hear come up during this?
Well, we're in for a treat because this is a comprehensive two-day experience. We're going to be hearing everything about clinical trials that you could possibly think about. How to do a clinical trial, how to get data from the clinical trial, how to make sure that there's diversity in clinical trials. What about international trials? What about therapeutic vaccine studies? And even maternal vaccine studies. So we're going to be covering just about everything that you could think about that you'd want to learn for clinical trials. So I'd encourage everybody to look carefully at the agenda and come to the session that it's meaningful for you, and then also please say hello to us so that we can learn more about your work.
Fantastic. I love the spectrum of things that are happening in this track, and you've mentioned diversity as a key concern there, and I know that from speaking to some of your colleagues, this is a really pressing issue in terms of how we can diversify the populations that we're recruiting for trials, who are involved in trials. So could you tell us a bit about why this is important and how you and your team are sort of pushing it forward?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing clinical research trials for almost 30 years now, and the way the clinical trial system works is you have to work very hard to get a protocol, and then you have to recruit the patients. And usually you want to recruit in a very small window of time, as small as you can, because not only just for the science, but also for the economy of it. And oftentimes there's biases in who you go to reach out to, who's reliable, who will do the recruitment, who will join us, who will come up for their next visit. So we have ignored a lot of diverse communities because we don't think that they're reliable. And that is just biases that have been built in. Also, those scientists that are leading the clinical trials are not diverse as well. So you really need to make a substantial investment in thought, in process, and in monetary compensation to be able to do it. You know, if we were going to do a study that required 50 men and 50 women, and at some point we're like, oh, you know, those men are really not reliable, let's just put some more women in there. We go, no, that's kind of against the protocol. We need, you know, an equal number of men and women. So I challenge all of us in the clinical trial space to say, why don't we do that with racial and ethnic diversity of the studies? We want to get 10 African American women or 10 African American men and 10 Caucasian men or 10 Hispanic men. Let's make that part of the protocol. And if it costs more to get those, then that's the cost of doing business. We have to put it into the operationalization of our studies, or we're not going to achieve it. But you brought up something that I'm really excited about, which is the workforce, the clinical trial diversity, and what can we do to get to the root causes. And I believe the root causes is fundamentally connected to who's doing the studies, the principal investigators and their leadership team. So Meharry Medical College is a historically black medical school. It's almost 150 years old. And can I tell you this story?
Yeah. Please, go ahead.
It was born out of the Civil War, about 150 years ago. And there's slavery in this part of the country. And what's really exciting is that the Union Army occupied Nashville for most of the war. So that meant there were a lot of black soldiers fighting for freedom. And Abraham Lincoln created the Veterans Administration for the United States, said anybody that fought for our country would always take care of them. So now, after the Civil War, a lot of black veterans were looking for care for their wounds and their families, and nobody would take care of them because there were no black doctors after the Civil War. So there was a need to create a school for those newly freed slaves to become doctors, to take care of the Black Civil War veterans. So with that spirit in mind, really out of the ashes of slavery, starting a medical school and a dental school. Fast forward now today, we have just announced we're starting a new school of global health. So our mission is not gone. It continues. We still have a lot of work to do. We've had a lot of contributions. We've made progress, but it's still too slow. And we'd like to accelerate that. So me being here today is to let everyone know that we're starting a national center for clinical trial diversity. We're going to be also a global center for clinical trial diversity. We don't want diversity just to be in the US. We want it to be all over. And we want it to be all races and ethnicities. And we want the workforce to be representative of who we're trying to recruit.
Absolutely. So something I've taken from that is you're very focused on the experience of the participants and the people who are collecting the data from these clinical trials, because the workforce will represent them and then cater to their needs better. What is it that we can be doing, or that you are doing, to improve this experience for participants and for the partners as well?
Well, what we're trying to do is engage our students to get them interested in it. Because a lot of students, they're learning how to be doctors or dentists or public health epidemiologists. They may not realize what it takes to run a clinical research trial. And similarly, we're trying to get the community to understand what it takes to do clinical research studies. And once the community understands it in a way that's meaningful to them, they are very impressed, and they feel a sense of feeling more secure that the medicines that they take have gone through really rigorous scientific thought and care and concern. We teach them about the institutional review boards and that what it's composed of and who comprises it. And not only are there scientists, but there are people who have no experience at all in science sitting there just trying to get it down to the common person and say, does this make sense? And then we also try to educate people and our students about the process for once a medicine does get approved, how do we keep making sure we didn't miss something and that we continue to fine-tune it along the way. So it's important that we let people know we want you, we need you, not only because we think it is good for you. A lot of times people who participate in clinical trials, they get good medical care that they may not otherwise have access to. They may be able to get a medicine that's very expensive that might be helpful for them. And there are so many benefits, and we want to extend those benefits to as many people as possible and get more stories of different races and ethnicities and families to be able to say, I participated in a clinical research trial, and this is what it meant for me.
Fantastic. So you're clearly here with an important message to share with the community, educating them, encouraging them. What are you hoping that you'll leave having achieved, or what are you really looking forward to for your time at the Congress?
I want to learn. There's a lot of new information here. The World Vaccine Congress is now a standard. It's not just a nice conference to go to. You really have to go to it to get the most cutting edge information on science and technology and new businesses, to learn from the past, the recent past and the long ago past. But it's a very dynamic. Things are changing constantly, and as we'd all like to predict the future and prepare for the future, we don't know what's ahead. So there's an excitement to it because we have made a lot of progress. It's not all doom and gloom, but we will be able to be stronger than we ever were before. The COVID pandemic is really an example of a great success. When you think that we were able to make the vaccine so quickly, that we know the vaccine did work, and we did save countless lives. We went through a very difficult time in how to manage the community experience. And I always did worry. I was the Nashville Public Health Director for the first year of COVID, so I had an extra insight into that. And that's one of the reasons I'm at Meharry Medical College, because I sat next to our president, Dr. James Hildreth, in the Emergency Operations Center every day for the first year of COVID, trying to go through the twists and turns of, are we making progress or not? We always knew we had to get to that vaccine to be able to really get to the next phase, but it's very challenging, and we want everyone to participate, because without everybody trying to understand, to learn, to work together, for us to also be able to understand diverse points of view, and to know that we can't change everyone's mind. There's only so much we can do, but we've got to just keep using science the best way we can, in the most compassionate way we can, in the most ethically way we can, and always double check ourselves.
Absolutely, a very important message there. Thank you.
Thank you.